o'clock.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the study session of August 17th, 2021 is called to order. Donna, will you do roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Nesco.
Here.
Mayor Dorsey.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Bode.
Here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
All right,
And Councilmember Bees is absent this evening.
right.
I move to excuse Councilmember Feast from tonight's study session.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to excuse Megan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. Our first study item is the 2022 budget. Finance Director Aaron B. Miller will share some information with us.
And,
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, council members. I'm going to pass this to Don Quizme, our financial specialist, to provide the information to you. And just a word of what we're going to show. We are still so early in our budget process yet that we don't have a lot of information, so we're going to go over the June monthly report, talk about some of the changes that are shown on there. And then Don's going to also talk about the updated 10-year forecast that we have with some of the new information that has that's come into us between when you had your council retreat and looked at it to now. So with that, I'll let Don come on.
Good evening, Mayor Dorsey, Deputy Mayor Peterson, and the rest of the council. This looks different than looking at the little computer screen. So I may look worse in person, but I won't be here too long. As Aaron said, that I'll be presenting these starting with the June report. So hopefully this has been useful, these monthly reports. And one of the side benefits that I have noticed when I'm reviewing the monthly data, that if I come up with questions saying, "No, is this expense supposed to be in this line item or not?" then I could shoot an email over to Aaron and Terry saying, "Can you check on this? Is this where it was supposed to be?" And we've made a couple changes with that, so that is the helpful thing. So I think you all have the packet. So if I start on the first page, I'll keep looking up at the screen, but it's not going to be up there anyway. On that first page is kind of the summary. So a couple things that kind of pop out really right away is that we're projected that we're going to go over budget, but that is really connected with our COVID recovery monies, because we got our first $1.4 million now in 2021. We'll have another $1.4 million in next year. So when you look at the expenditures at the top, it shows that we're expected to spend over $13 million on a $12 million budget. So we will be bringing the budget supplemental in the near future to increase the budget authority for general fund. So I have some notes within there. The ending fund balance estimated at this point is $6 million. So that's fairly close to what we had last month. And then we have a $2.4 million reserve that we want to maintain in the general fund. So that still leaves us $3.6 million over budget at this point. And then I have a couple notes in the revenues. We've been doing well even without the COVID recovery money, so that has continued to be coming in very good. And then I have notes also in the expenditure overview is that COVID money, since we don't know, it hasn't been determined how it's going to be spent yet, we're showing it as a transfer out, and we'll put that into the capital resources fund as we as you, as the council and City Manager Knighton decide on the spending process and how that funding gets used. And then at that point, we'll transfer it out to the fund that is going to have the expenditure. And then, also with the budget supplemental, we'll bring in the near future, hopefully within a month or two, is we also want to create utility capital funds, and I believe that's been presented to the council before. So kind of like the capital project fund that we have for street funds, that we want to dedicate that money, move it into a specific fund, and then it stays there until it's expended on a capital project. So we do that for each utility fund. So if we flip to page 2, the main variance that shows up on that is also still connected to that COVID recovery funds, because that comes in on our intergovernmental revenue, which makes it look very impressive when we're at 375% of our budget, but that is was unknown money when we made the budget, and it's transferred into our capital resources to be used later, how we will spend that. So the format has stayed the same from month to month, pretty much, so that might be enough on that page. Then on the third page, when we get into expenditures, then that non-departmental line is showing when we're transferring out that 1.4 million to our capital resources fund. So, yeah, that recovery fund really is the highlight of the bigger variances on these different pages of the information. So it also reflects on page 5, both in revenues and expenditures. And on page 5, that we are looking at real data, I mean, through June of 19, 20, and 21, and then comparing it to budget. So that page, I think, is kind of a helpful thing, because that, like, the revenues were at 67.5% at 50% of the year, and their expenditures are showing at 58.1% of at the 50% of the year.
And we're projecting a little over 6 million in reserves in the general fund by the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So like 50, almost 50%.
So we're
over budget.
53.
Our target's 20% with the general fund?
The target reserve is 20%, so 6 million minus 2.4, which,
Okay.
talked about that 3.6 to 3,
Yeah.
3.5, 3.6.
attend.
On the first page of this, can that have a line item there that shows the reserve and then shows any fund balance of whatever it is, $3 million?
In the bottom, we kind of have that kind of address saying the required funding and balance, just to reminding us that 2.4 million is that.
Where is that?
That-
Oh, okay.
Just
Way
right
down
above
here,
the
I
bar
see.
chart.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that we have just kind of been showing on there just to kind of remind us, because as the budget changes, that 20% amount would be different, because we'll compare it to the budget. Because, yeah, we want to have that in the back of our minds, that 2.4 we want to, that the council has decided they want to save that as a reserve, so,
So the 2.4 is just the reserve, it's not the any fund balance, right?
Correct.
yeah, so that is the reserve we want to maintain. Then on page 7, the main thing that jumps out is in the transfers out in the top portion of the page, and then that's that 1.4 million showing it's transferred out of general fund, and it's then on the bottom of that same page, the capital resources fund shows the transfer in of the 1.4 million. Other funds, I think, have been looking pretty good. On page 8, one noticed that we had bought some parks land for Neeland Parks, land to expand the park, and that really should be in the capital improvement fund. And the first, it was in the 2020 budget originally, and then I'm not sure what all took place, but COVID, of course, being one of them. So that purchase happened in 2021. So that we'll also have to do a supplemental saying we spent the money in 2021 versus 2020 that when it didn't take place. And that's the 84,470. I think the rest of the pages are pretty close to what they would have been in prior months. Any questions on the monthly report?
Anybody have any questions for Dawn?
No. Everything seems to be following really closely with the trend line that we started at the end of the year. There hasn't been a whole lot of deviation. little bit, but not much. So we're continuing on that pace.
Okay,
Then we move on to the forecast. The first page, I think, in the handouts is showing up the assumptions that we're using, and these are the same assumptions that were used at the council retreat. So it lists on the revenue and their expenditure side what we're projecting for years going forward. One projection that we have at this point, and I guess, I don't know if our budget really is a preliminary budget. I kind of think of it as a preliminary maybe, or or as very early in the budgeting process, but within the general fund, at this point, we do have 2 positions that were increased in there. We have a code enforcement officer and an accounting assistant. And that may change as the budget process continues, but we have those 2 positions in there.
Where are we looking?
This is on the next, the
Page
handout.
13 is
So
the
it's,
assumptions.
It's like a half page, right after the 10-year,
Okay.
I mean, the 10-page finance report.
I got 10 pages.
Do you not have them all in there?
If I'm looking at the right thing, I have 10 pages.
Yeah, well, 10 pages of this, but is there, right after this report?
The study session packet is 17 pages, and this
And then I have
document's
after
page
that,
13.
After the 10, I have this.
You're seeing page 13 for this?
Right next to the TPS.
I should have wrote the page numbers on them.
I don't have it, so, okay.
If you go to the council packet and not the study session packet, it's in there.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, so if you.
I
The
didn't-
business meeting packet, sorry.
This was added to,
oh, okay.
Study session, whatever the title
The
is.
council.
And I think some of these documents might be in both, and they're supposed for the study session. This is maybe just in the study session. Did you find the page?
Then I didn't download the right thing.
But the assumptions are what was used at the retreat, so. And then on the big page, that has the forecast of year by year, then we have a note at the top that the forecast assumes no new positions or new programs beginning in 2023. So I mentioned that at this point, we have 2 positions in for 2022, and it does not include any additional general fund, like for TBD, Transportation Benefit District is coming to an end, and then that's been in the street fund. But if we continue to do as many road projects as we had, we'll have to probably transfer money from the general fund in the future. And following this along in 2021, down by the bottom, we have a transfer out showing of 5.1 million. 2.9 million of that would be planned to set aside for capital resources to bring down our general fund balance and to have that moved into the capital resources fund. And then when you move over to the 2023 year, at that point, our expenses go above our projected revenues by $55,000.
So-
And then as we move over to 2025, at that point, our expenses are even more over our revenue, but it would also bring us down below our 2.4 million, or below our 20% budget that we want to keep as a surplus, or keep as our target balance.
Just to add a little bit more information to a couple of the things that Don mentioned, the new positions, code enforcement specifically, was in response to a couple of council members' ride-alongs with our code enforcement officer and noting the need to be able to beef that function up. And then completely slipped my mind.
County assistant?
Yeah, the accounting assistant position for B&O purposes, to make sure that we maintain that. And then there was one other thing that you mentioned in there. It'll come to me at the best possible time, I'm sure. So, sorry, Don.
I have a question. Is that okay, or should I ask later?
Okay.
No, go ahead.
No, it's good.
So on the 10-year forecast assumption, I think that's page 13, maybe. Revenue assumptions, it's sales, property, non-city utilities, city utilities. Property, 2.5% per year. Is that selling some of our property off?
No, that's, I believe, is property taxes, and we put it at that number because we anticipate new development. So you have the 1% property tax hike plus any new development, and that's kind of the number that we're looking at, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So the other, I did remember the other thing. The other thing was the Transportation Benefit District. Don mentioned that that will be ending. That program will be ending in 2026, and we've talked a little bit about that before, but we can only extend it if there is debt associated with it. Probably not something that we want to do. We can certainly talk about it. But that's going to cause about a $650,000 per year reduction in our ability to do road projects. Not for several years, not for 5, obviously, but something we need to be thinking about now, how we're going to address that issue, so that when the time comes, it's not, the impact is not as huge.
Something we can talk to our delegation about changing that law so we can run that again.
Yeah, we can, there are several options, and I can discuss each of those with you, just to kind of see where the council is at the moment. There are several different ways to do it, to address it. Each involves trade-offs, so we can go through that. Like I said, we have 5 years, but it's definitely something we should start thinking about now, so it doesn't catch us unaware in 2026.
So when you say if there's, it can be extended if there's debt attached to it, what is the debt? What would that example be?
So we would issue bonds based on the revenue that is associated with it, associated with the TBD, to complete a major road upgrade or something like that. The danger in that is if you issue debt, you can extend it, but it still has to go out to the vote of the people again. So if you issue debt and it is not approved by the citizens, then you're in real trouble. So that's just one of the variables that we can talk through as we get closer to 2026.
I think I had asked you if it's a possibility for the citizens to do bonds through the city. Is that a possibility? When you put bonds out there for a project? I don't know exactly how that works.
If we were to bond for something, if we were to issue bonds, it does allow for residents or citizens to purchase those bonds through a secondary market.
Okay,
So they could purchase City of Shelton bonds.
All right.
But it would be the city that would initiate that bond sale.
okay, all right.
One more quick one. This 2.5% property tax growth, is that assuming that we actually adopt the ad valorem?
Yes.
Okay.
So would that have to, that extension on that the Transportation Benefit District, does it have to go through the state? If we want to get that changed over to where we can extend it without hooking debt onto it?
I am not sure of the exact mechanism. For the reasons I mentioned, that's not something that I would recommend.
Okay,
But there are other methods. Many cities in the state issue car tabs, basically. There's a surcharge on your car tabs, which is a replacement for the sales tax, TBD. There are benefits and downsides to that approach as well. So, there's many variables that go into it. One of those is everybody pays sales tax whether you're here or not, whether you live here or not, but only the citizens of Shelton pay the vehicle tabs. But that's just one of many different variables that go into that discussion. But we can definitely have that discussion as the time gets closer.
The other thing to keep in mind in probably the next 5 years, hopefully 4 years, whatever, there'll actually be a new transportation revenue package in the legislature, and to Councilmember Onisco's point, getting that on Troy's radar, you know, as we're approaching sunsetting of the TBD, to whatever we can do to help motivate new revenue from transportation projects. And local jurisdictions did pretty well back when the gas taxes and things were increased, and, you know, but, yeah, it's obviously not enough, so.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take us down a rabbit hole there, but,
Well, that's good to have discussion always.
yeah.
One other line that we have on here that I should maybe mention is on the bottom of the expense area, we have a guess of a 1% underspend, because traditionally, or fairly often, we have a little underspending, so we're doing a negative against the expenses. So if we truly do underspend, then that extends how long we stay before we'd start dipping below our recommended fund balance. I think that's the notes I was wanting to cover on that. Any further questions on forecasts? And then hopefully the next sheet in the packet is just the budget calendar that I think you probably saw that at the retreat, so it's just, maybe the same as that was, but then just reminders that we're currently in the middle of August, so we've been meeting with departments and with the city manager Knighton and going through all the budget requests that have come in so that we can start sorting through those to see how many we have, and then we'll have to find out more what our fund balance is going into that. On September 28th, there'll be a second study session like we have now, and October 5th is our plan for proposing the budget to council.
The next study session will be in the format we talked about, where it's the off Tuesday, off council meeting Tuesday. So we just wanted to provide you this update tonight, get any direction from you on where we're heading at the moment. I know there's not a whole lot of information. Like Don said, it's a preliminary budget. So we're getting started and going through the requests at this point from each of the departments on what they need to operate and to accomplish council's strategic goals, as well as the yearly work plan. So if there's any questions or any comments about where we're headed so far, we'd love to hear those.
I have a question, one more. I was on a retreat, so on September 2nd, what is court of last resort if needed?
That's when I tell one of the department heads no, they can come ask me to reconsider, and I can tell them no again.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
It's the last no.
you're right.
So at the retreat, we talked about making some potential strategic investments with the underrun, or I shouldn't say the underrun, but with the growth in the
Yep.
general fund revenues. It sounded like we were all kind of leaning the same way towards some of the infrastructure projects, where we've had strong commercial and/or industrial interest. Just curious, has anybody been thinking about it, or any other thoughts on that, or? So, and I'm not sure, Kathy, so I'm not sure if you're in the loop on that, but we had talked about there's certain areas where the city doesn't have sewer and water
Right.
services, and there's been considerable interest from business to potentially build, however, not having close access to those utilities is cost prohibitive in their process. So obviously with the $2 to $2.5 million potential, we probably can't fund everything that we would want, but I think when we're talking about, again, sunsetting, the transportation benefit district in 5 years or so, motivating some of that new commercial development or industrial, and may help lessen that burden if that falls off the map all of a sudden one year here. But I mean, I'm still in the, I personally am still in the camp that whatever we can do out towards Johns Prairie in the UGA, and then out towards the port and Highway 101, 102 would be, I think, beneficial. Just again, based on some of the inquiries to the EDC about looking for properties to come and build new facilities and bring jobs in other things like that. I think
It's,
would be-
we have our study session scheduled. That is one of the items that we're going to bring what we heard from council members about priorities, police cars, all those types of things that were possibilities that were discussed. We'll bring those back in a study session just to make sure that we heard you correctly and that we're moving in the right direction with those ARPA dollars. And then it will have to come back for a regular public meeting. And that more than likely for the capital purchases this year will be part of the supplemental. But the direction on infrastructure projects will be prioritized through that work session and then through a public hearing specifically on those dollars. That public hearing will probably be next year. But we have 6 years to spend all of the American Recovery Plan Act dollars.
So getting back to infrastructure and whatever out Lake Boulevard,
Mhm.
and they did all that new road,
Mhm.
they didn't account for a sewer line for when those people, is there water line in there, but there's no sewer line, right?
There's sewer and water there, but what happened is there was the perceived 5-year no cut, so you couldn't tap into them was the problem.
Okay, but the sewer line is in there?
Mhm.
Okay.
And water.
So the 5 years coming up pretty soon, isn't it?
Well, and
Could be.
the 5 years is being interpreted a little bit differently. It's not you can't ever cut. It's when you do cut, there's, you have to patch it a little bit better than you would otherwise.
Okay.
But it was put out as a no cut for years and years and years. So there's a lot of confusion still on it, because I still talk with people that say there is an absolute no cut.
Sure.
And, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I'm talking about this, I had someone approach me on that, and I said, well, I'll find out, but,
Mhm.
okay.
And I wanted to answer Joe's question. Yes, I've definitely been thinking about that stuff, so I'm very excited. I can't wait to get into it.
Yep.
Good deal. Anything else? Thanks, Don.
That's it. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Good job,
Thanks,
Aaron. Look good over there, dude.
It's hard for him not to talk.
All right, our next item is paving of the median islands on Olympic Highway North. Public Works Technician Jared Wielander is with us. Give us some details.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Dor.
Hold on just a second.
Let's write that down, yeah.
We have to wipe it up.
Hey, did someone get in those mediums and pull some of the weeds out?
I think we're just about to hear about that.
That's one of the reasons.
Oh, it's like a weed. Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dorsey.
Okay, Jared, go ahead, yeah.
So the Olympic Highway North median islands have been a time-consuming maintenance issue. The 2-inch minus wash rock was placed in the islands, a part of the downtown connector project. The landscape rock has provided a bedding ground for weeds. And also the rock falls into the roadway, posing traffic safety issues. City crews continue spending time street sweeping the uncontained rock, spraying and manually removing the weeds on a consistent basis. Not only do these duties consume maintenance hours, but they also pose traffic safety issues to city crews while removing the rock and weeds in the median areas. Below you can see 4 pictures of what the islands are looking like right now. And as you can tell, the rock continues to fall into the roadway and weeds continue to sprout up.
I think they have help falling in the roadway. I've stopped and picked up several big rocks in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Early
Yeah.
in the mornings.
Yeah, and so the recommended long-term solution for the median locations would be to remove the rock and replace them with stamped concrete. Replacing the rock with concrete will lower worker and automobile traffic safety issues and also reduce maintenance hours in these areas. This will allow city crews more time spent on other projects around the city. The preferred concrete design, right now there's existing red stamp concrete on the ends of the medians. And what we're wanting to do is install dark gray concrete in the median with a rough rock texture. So below, there's some example islands that show them filled in. It's not exactly what we're proposing to do, but it's just some examples to give you guys a picture.
Would that be a pervious?
I'm not.
No, not for this. That was one of the questions that Jay and I talked about was, is the island or was the island designed to treat stormwater off Olympic Highway North? And it was not. So if we if we do lay the stamped concrete down, as, you know, council is going to discuss tonight, it wouldn't cause any further stormwater issues. Also keep in mind, we're only talking about the median and not necessarily that area directly adjacent to the path on the, was that southwest, southeast side of the roadway.
I do imagine it catches a lot of water, though.
Yeah, well, the one on the southeast side, if I recall correctly, was designed for stormwater, but the center sections were not.
Because the southwest one is kind of tied into the library,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely support this. I think it's the right answer, since we,
Mhm.
so are we spraying weeds in the city now?
There, quite a bit of it is hand done, along with another product that Jay has found that works
Yeah.
almost as well as the commercially available Roundup stuff.
Yeah, so absolutely, I think this is the right answer. I think it's, as well as limiting staff exposure to traffic is a great call. Yeah, I think it's, you did the homework on this, is the right call. The other thing I've noticed a lot too, is at the face of the curb in areas around the city, and as well as sidewalks, you've got like waist-high weeds in places, and I know that that'll deteriorate curb condition and cause other issues. So if we could consider some sort of mitigation for weeds in the future on, you know, our rights of way, I think it would be a good call. And again, if there's environmentally friendly ways of doing that don't involve having to necessarily have somebody out there with a scraper,
Yep.
on you know, all day long on that, I think it'd be good to explore other options for mitigating that. But yeah, I think it's a good call.
One question, one item for consideration. So question being, is there any concern that evening that out and having it flush with the curbing becomes any issue for driving? Because if I recall correctly, one of the reasons they chose that rock was that if a vehicle did jump that curb, their tire would get stuck. And instead of them continuing to travel across that and into the other lane of traffic, do we have any safety concerns about moving forward with that? Would be the question. Second is, as we're trying to create kind of a cohesive look throughout the city, I would encourage us to stick with, if we're doing the red concrete already, let's do the red concrete already. We've got the clock tower and now the roundabout and a few other places. So again, trying to be consistent about our treatments as we're moving throughout. But I love the idea of doing something simple, easy to maintain, and effective.
Okay. We'll look into those and get you answers.
I had the same question, because I've seen 3 vehicles washed out on that, and it absolutely works as like a runaway truck stop.
Right.
They didn't pass the median. I mean, I don't know if it's enough to worry. There never was a median there, and it wasn't like it was a high crash area before, but I thought it was built to be that way as well.
Okay.
I think there should be a painting, 3D painting that looks like you're going down in a hole.
I've seen those, yeah.
Yeah, as much as I like the dark look, I think we should, I agree with Deidre, I think we should keep it the red color. It looks like it's a stamped, what is it, stamped like a brick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like brick texture.
Yeah, I like that.
I like the cobblestone look, but
Agreed.
I think we should keep it red. And it's, the fact that it's going to be so much less maintenance and safer for the employees to not have to be out there fixing the rocks or pulling the weeds and worry about getting run over is a big benefit.
Okay.
And tacky looking or not a good idea to have some sort of the wire barriers in the middle? Is that not good looking? That would prevent a car from at least somewhat going over to the other lane.
I think part of the concern why that wasn't done is per AASHTO standards, which kind of control all it's a uniform code for traffic safety throughout the United States. We can take a look at that, or potentially some other types of treatments to make sure cars don't go through into the other lane. We can definitely take a look at that. I appreciate those comments, and when we bring this back to you for consideration in a public meeting, we'll definitely have answers to those questions for you.
Jeff, I did have one more thing I just remembered. I would suggest, because I haven't heard how the conversation turned out between Jay and the resident up there, where they have a hard time turning into their driveway,
Yes.
that before we pour this concrete, that we determine whether we need to shorten that island a little bit, or how, I don't know how that conversation came out, so that's why I'm throwing it out there.
Yep, we will definitely look into that too.
Because we don't want to tear it up again if we have to tear it up,
Right.
or
Yeah.
part of it.
Do it right the first time. Yep.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, guys.
So just real quickly, before we close this and have a few minutes before the regular council meeting starts, on your study session agenda, it's part of your, Donna made this part of your looking ahead, so one convenient spot to find everything. On the 24th, which is next Tuesday, a week from today, we'll be starting at 6 o'clock, and you'll have updates on the Western Gateway project and an update on our parking lot across the street, our gravel lot, and get that moving. So those are the two items. And then on September 14th, which is 4 Tuesdays from now, whatever it is, we'll talk about the local road safety plan, which is a pretty big deal as far as state funding is concerned and things like that. So that's what we have so far. If you have any suggestions of things that you would like to discuss in a study session, please let me know. We'll get it added, and we'll continue to bring you information as we get it.
All right.
That's all I have at the moment.
What? All right. Council have any other items for discussion tonight? If not, the study session is adjourned at 5:39. Council meeting of August 17th, 2021 is called to order. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have Jeff Knight lead us tonight.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. How about a roll call, Donna?
Okay. Councilmember Nesco,
Here?
Mayor Gurke,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here?
Councilmember Schmidt,
Here.
Councilmember Bode,
Here?
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
and Councilmember Feast is absent tonight. Mayor.
I move to excuse Councilmember Feast from tonight's meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Megan Feast. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion granted. All right. Council members, have any late changes to our agenda tonight? Not? We'll move on to council member reports. Anyone have one?
Go for it.
Joe does?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, last Friday, I got invited from Councilmember Municipal and Commissioner Chudy. We toured a couple of housing developments in Olympia that were constructed and managed by the Low Income Housing Institute, also known as LEHI. So if you ever hear that acronym, that's what that stands for. But they showed us the tiny home village. They also showed us the new construction on Martin Way and Pattison, as well as the Billy Frank Jr. on downtown Olympia there, and talked about, from soup to nuts, kind of how they got those projects off the ground. And while we all are struggling with the housing situation in every city, all of the same things that come up in, support and opposition, all the same sorts of things were, discussed and dealt with that, we've been across. So it's kind of in a way reassuring to know that these problems aren't necessarily unique to Shelton, but that there's also opportunities that I think could work and could be good partnerships between the city, the county, and nonprofits in the future to help combat housing. And just wanted to express, I think those types of field trips are good, and encourage others, if you're interested, to go check that out. So. Thanks for the invite.
Anyone else?
I didn't have quite a report, but more of a shout out to, gosh, I can't even start to name everybody. We just recently were working on some sewer and water taps, and working with the city was phenomenal. Just the way that everybody stepped up and made things happen, even when especially when there were problems. Everybody was really right there and did an amazing job. So I wish I could go down the list, but there's just too many to name.
Great.
All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to our general public comment, where members of the public can provide comment on any topic at this time. And I also want to say that public, if they're listening, can call Jeff Knighton or email Jeff Knighton. And those numbers are on the website. So, Donna, do we have anyone tonight?
I will go check while I do our 30-second delay.
We'll do a 30-second delay.
At QFC, we think fresh and local go together. Your savings is the icing on the
It
cake.
could be way worse, buddy.
I was actually gonna do the Jeopardy song, but as a commercial first.
Yeah, there you go.
Is there like copyright?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are,
Sorry about
actually.
YouTube will be, yeah.
I've been wanting to do that for like half a year.
That's 30 seconds, Mr. Mayor, there's no one signed up.
All right, thank you. Okay, we are recessing from a regular meeting to an open public hearing. And we're going to hear from Finance Director Aaron B. Miller. He's going to share information about updating the Shelton Municipal Code.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. Aaron B. Miller with the city's finance department. The ordinance before you is really just a cleanup ordinance of Shelton Municipal Code 8.08. Back in 2017, the city contracted with Waste Connections for garbage services, and our code really hasn't been updated, so it's got very old language in there. It has rates back to 2015 and all of that kind of stuff, container sizes. That's all now done by the contractor. So what we've done here is we've gone through and eliminated most of the code that no longer is relevant. The sections that are remaining, there's 4 sections, and most of those sections were in the code originally. The only change really is what we have under section 8.08020, means of providing service, and it just says that per state law, we can contract this out, and if the city so chooses to do so. I also want to say, importantly, we have left the compulsory language in there that businesses and residents, it's compulsory that they use garbage services. One of the things that we're going to be doing, and we'll talk about in the next business agenda item, is updating some administrative processes that we have with that to further delineate between that. But really what this allows is for the city to continue to have compulsory services. If those, the penalty phase of that, if someone is not doing that, would go through code enforcement. Currently, we use finance and we use kind of utility billing as that kind of stick, if you will. We're no longer going to be doing that. So if there is an issue, code enforcement would go, and there is a penalty that I think it's up to 90 days in jail and up to $1,000 fine, or both. So again, we're trying to separate out here a little bit the city from the garbage contract, and letting the contractor just handle the garbage process, the solid waste process. And happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Let's go back to the penalty phase. So if they don't have garbage, they can go to jail?
That's a misdemeanor. That's basically the max penalty for a misdemeanor. One class, I'm not sure which one it is. I seriously doubt that that will ever happen over this particular issue, but it's will be the same for any code enforcement issue, regardless of whether it's lack of garbage or anything else.
So let me understand this. So if someone just decided they wanted to haul their own garbage to the garbage dump, and they never had any garbage to be picked up at their house, they would get fined?
It's because the city has a compulsory garbage service. You are required to have garbage service. There needs to be a method of enforcing that compulsory service.
Okay.
How long is our contract with them again?
Boy, I think it goes, it's several years.
Yeah.
Several years.
Quite a
number
long
of
time.
years, yeah.
It was a 20-year contract.
Yeah. And it was
What,
signed
3 years?
17 we started.
Yeah. And we still have the no water, no garbage clause. If they go to Arizona for the winter and they don't have water, then they don't have to pay for garbage.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's one of the things with us separating out and letting the contractor do that, is it's going to be easier for that kind of suspension, if you will, to happen.
Suspension if you want to turn your water service off.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you're a snowbirder.
Yeah.
All right. Has anyone signed up for public testimony here, Donna?
I will
Take-
start the 30-second delay.
Okay.
Go check. There is no one out there, Mr. Mayor. And
All
that is
right.
30 seconds.
Thank you. In that case, can we have the first reading of ordinance number 1973-0621?
Yes, ordinance number 1973-0621, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, amending Chapter 8.08 of the Shelton Municipal Code relating to solid waste collections.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that,
That we forward this ordinance, I move that we forward this ordinance to the September 7th City Council meeting for further consideration.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any council members have any questions or comments for Mr. B. Miller?
I mean, we're changing this to, this violation now, or is that later? The penalties?
The penalty is already in place.
Yeah.
so that nothing changes there.
To a misdemeanor, though, we're changing that
No.
now?
Yeah, the language for the penalty is the exact same that's in code now as it's continuing forward.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
But it was coming from the accounting, now it's going to code enforcement?
The collections part of it was going, was from, through the finance and accounting department. Now we're transferring the enforcement of that to code enforcement, so our finance staff can work with numbers and do what they do, rather than, you know, collections.
I mean, I'd like to see some kind of a scale before we change it to a misdemeanor. I mean, is it, we go to the door, it's a warning, and
Oh,
then we
it's-
go at the second time, and maybe it's a,
No, it's not a misdemeanor right off the bat. I can share that with you for sure.
Yeah.
I think to Councilmember Onisco's point, while it's written and it can be, somebody willfully violates, disobeys, or neglects and refuses to comply, that we can essentially arrest them for it. I would think, there's an education component,
Oh, yeah.
and there's all of that other stuff. However, because code enforcement is an issue in the city, I believe there needs to be some teeth behind this. So I'm okay with the language being what it is, as long as we're going through it and, educate first and all the other stuff. But
That is the absolute last resort after going through the process with the court here. That, to be quite honest with you, I don't ever expect that to happen.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody that, just absolutely refuses to do anything, and even then, it's doubtful that we're going to house somebody in the county facility for that particular issue.
Correct. Seems to me there was, like a warning, and then another warning, and then we'll work with you.
but where is that?
I think
We're all not gonna be here one day. I mean, we could all be different people, and, I mean, where's the scale and how we're gonna handle
So I
these?
think what we can do is add language here when we bring it back. It's in chapter 7, and I can't remember the exact, but under code enforcement, it does detail out the steps the city must take. And so we could add that, in accordance with X, Y, and Z, so we could certainly do that.
Okay,
And then
I mean,
that-
that would make me more comfortable. I mean,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's future councils, future administrators and staff that could just say, oh, we're gonna go write a ticket. Boom.
Yeah, chapter 7 of our code details that for all code enforcement activities, not just garbage service. But we can, we can add that language, and I'll send you that particular section so you can look it over.
So, a little more clear on this. So a person pays their garbage bill each month, but they choose to take their garbage to the garbage dump for some reason.
Mhm.
That, as long as they're paying their garbage bill, that.
Yeah, as
that-
long-
But when they refuse to pay their garbage bill,
Mhm.
they're taking their garbage to the garbage dump or wherever,
Or not.
or not, that's right. Then that's, okay, I got it.
That's when the code enforcement process would start. And again, that starts with the education piece, We have this, and then,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and that's a good point. Director B. Miller brought it up. I'm looking at it right now. It prescribes step A, step B, step C. First is investigation, B is correction, notice of violation, goes through the whole process. I think, you just simply can prescribe that.
Right.
Because that's, I think, gonna meet the need.
I think that will get us there.
I like the enforcement part. I've just never been a fan of this forced garbage service, because I can take almost a dump trailer worth of my own personal garbage to the dump for $24. And what I have to pay for a garbage can that doesn't fit my garbage, because I still take garbage to the dump every month. So
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it, but
But it
I
has
can't
to be.
change that.
Has to be done, because.
It does, but I agree, the enforcement part is there. If
Yeah.
you're not taking your garbage away, there should be enforcement, but I don't feel like you should be forced to have garbage service. But like I said, there's nothing I can do about that, so.
All right. Anyone else? We have a motion and a second to forward this ordinance to the September 7th city council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
With new language,
With new language.
with new language.
with new language. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have another item from Aaron, a contract amendment with Waste Connections.
Thank you again. What is before you is the second amendment to the agreement between the city and our garbage collection contract with Waste Connections. Back in 2017, July of 2017, I believe it was, the city signed a long-term contract with Waste Connections to provide garbage and recycling service to the city. Soon after that, I think it was even that next meeting in July, there was the first amendment that came through that included language on how delinquencies would be treated. And it's very convoluted. It's hard to manage through, and both the city finance department and utilities, billing, and Waste Connections have wanted to update it, and that's what this does. Really, what this does is it, again, provides further separation between how Waste Connections does their business and how the response for delinquencies. And so after a period of time, let's see, I think it's after 30 days following an issuance notice of late payment that would be issued by the garbage contractor. The contractor may suspend solid waste and recycle services to the customer. After 90 days then, the contractor can actually go and use their collection process in order to receive those payments. This is where the code really comes into play. So if they pull the cans and they suspend service because of non-payment, they go and they put them on, they go to collections agencies and so on and so forth. If the garbage starts to pile up, that's where our code can step in and try to help mediate the matter between the code and them having the garbage service. Now how it works, if I can say it in a nutshell, the Waste Connection sends information to us. We add the late fees to their utility bill, and they keep billing for that service to that, so that fee keeps on coming higher and higher. And then if someone does send a check, for instance, or goes to Waste Connections to make that payment, because of the process that we have, they're told, no, we can't take that payment anymore. You have to go to the city to make that payment. And so they come to the city and we pay it and hand it over, and we take that and hand it over to Waste Connections. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts in there that we believe are unnecessary. And what this will do is, again, try to further define what steps that Waste Connections can take on delinquencies, and then, again, based on our code, we have code enforcement should some garbage start to pile up. Both Waste Connections and the city are in favor of this amendment, and we think it will help smooth a lot of an arduous process out for us. So that's what this amendment does. Again, it's more just on the administrative side of collections and delinquencies. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
So before, if I'm not mistaken on how it worked, if you weren't paying your garbage bill, it came over, and if it accumulated too much, wouldn't we suspend water service?
We could, yes.
So we're removing that.
Yes,
So
we
now-
are
now
taking
there's-
water
we're-
service and garbage
Perfect.
service and.
Perfect, because that always felt pretty off as well to me, that we were, one, enforcers, and two, we're going to suspend another service that is necessary. If garbage isn't necessary because you can remove your own, you're not bringing in your own potable water, though.
Right. This takes those two, separates them.
I agree with James' comments. Also, the way it was working, wasn't it, and by the way, I agree with this ordinance, it was kind of messy.
Yeah.
But they were canceling that account, transferring the whole balance over to the city, starting a new account.
Okay.
So,
It was dirty.
So is that still going on?
No, this will also fix that. That account is the Waste Connections account, and it doesn't have anything. How Waste Connections wants to handle that is on them, but the city is not part of that process.
So none of that's coming back to the city?
That's right.
The past due balances? Okay.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd make things a lot cleaner, more efficient, and a lot less confusing for the customer.
Oh,
Yeah, and we think it, Waste Connections and us both think it's a better way to do things.
cool.
So we're officially out of the garbage business.
That's correct.
Just a
Well, sort of.
Just a quick question. Because it's a compulsory service, that means that even if there's delinquency on the account, it doesn't mean that their garbage does not get picked up, correct?
So what this does is it transfers, they can pull the cans and go through their process to get the delinquent payments and go through collections. While they're in that process, they let us know. They say, we've pulled cans from 123, Coda Street. And we then can know that we need to start paying attention, and code enforcement can keep an eye on to see what's happening on that end. It's still a compulsory service, and so we still have that code enforcement penalty phase, but we're giving it time, I guess you would say, to let Waste Connections go through their process. And if need be, we would go through the code enforcement process on our side.
But they're in violation the minute the garbage can gets picked up.
Yes.
Not
Technically,
when the garbage piles up. When the garbage can is gone, they're in violation.
technically,
So we would code enforce on somebody who just wasn't paying their bill, or only on somebody who's piling up garbage?
No, well, we would code enforce on someone who's not following the compulsory garbage requirement.
And before we sold our solid waste, it was still compulsory. Yeah,
And that language was in the contract for the garbage service.
yes.
so, yeah.
And I think this has been clarified, I'm gonna ask it one more time, but just so it's clear. This is not, so if somebody goes in arrears, Waste Connections shuts off their account, now they're in violation, because Waste Connections is not gonna pick up the garbage, and they do not have garbage service.
Mhm.
And Waste Connection fees them a $21, $25 account, reestablishment fee, plus this, plus that. I just want to make sure we're not like doubling down on somebody who falls in arrears on their account for a month or something like that.
That's where the progressive part of Chapter 7 starts. That's, we talk to the people, we'll even, our code enforcement officer, our current one, Shannon, goes out and she has the vouchers that she gives, to help people in those situations. We are not, nor will we ever look to penalize right off the bat. It's help, educate, we will do everything we can to help you get to where the service needs to be.
Okay. We'll pause for 30 seconds. See if anyone signed up for public testimony.
Thanks for all the answers, Aaron.
No one has signed up, and that's 30 seconds.
Hey, Donna, you're getting faster at this. All right. So do we have a motion?
I move that we forward this amendment to the September 7th City Council meeting for further discussion, consideration.
Second?
All right. I think we've done our comments and questions, right?
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second to forward this amendment to the September 7th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Aaron. Now, if you want to wipe, okay. Wipe that down.
Donna reminded me, Mayor reminded me, one of these days I'll remember.
Next, we're going to have Police Chief Carol Beeson with details about a surplus surplusing police vehicles.
Good evening,
Hello.
Mayor Dorsey, Deputy Mayor, and members of City Council. I'm here to request a surplus of 3 police vehicles that have far exceeded their shelf life as police vehicles. The 3 vehicles in question are all Ford Crown Victorias from 2004 to 2008. Ford no longer makes the Crown Victorias anymore, so we're having a hard time finding parts to maintain these vehicles. It's become a lot more costly to keep them, and because of the amount of miles that we put on these cars, after a while, they're just not as safe to drive. So we'd like to surplus these 3 vehicles. 2 of them are still operable. The third one had been in an accident, and we've been using it more as a training tool, so that one will have to be, you laugh, but you'd be amazed what you can use a spare car for. The third one would just be scrap metal at this point. We estimate conservatively, we'd probably get about $2,100 for the 3 vehicles.
Total?
Total.
Yeah. All right, so we need to pause for 30 seconds while Donna makes her trip to the,
And it's gonna be fast, because Mr. Ziegler's out there watching the farm.
When we surplus, do we send them to an auction?
We send all surplus vehicles to, well, and I'll answer him.
Okay.
No public comment, Mr. Mayor.
all right, thank you. So can I get a motion, please?
I move that we forward this resolution to the September 7th City Council meeting for further consideration.
Second.
All right, any questions for Ms. Beeson?
Councilmember
Somebody-
Bode had asked a question about the surplus process.
Yeah,
So surplus, we take all our vehicles to Tumwater for the state surplus sale. Basically, they sell them for us. It makes it very convenient. We don't have to dedicate an employee to talk to prospective buyers or anything like that. And we get roughly the same amount we would otherwise.
Awesome.
They just charge a buyer's premium or something?
Yeah.
And could we get more for these? That seems kind of cheap for a 2006 and 2008 Crown Victoria.
But you gotta understand that police officers don't drive their vehicles like normal people do. You know, they spend 12-hour shifts driving those cars around, and so they get a lot more wear and tear on them than normal people put on their cars.
And if I remember correctly, all 3 of these have been retired once from other police departments around the state of Washington.
It's entirely possible that they are new to us
Time to
cars.
send them to the boneyard.
okay. We have a motion and a second to forward this resolution to the September 7th City Council meeting for further consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, girl.
All right, so our last business item is a resolution to approve city inclusion with Mason County in a comprehensive solid waste management plan. Jeff Knighton will have the details for us tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Tonight before you, we have basically in addition to something we've been doing for quite some time, RCW 70A.205 requires each county within the state to prepare a comprehensive solid waste management plan. I will not try to pronounce the acronym. In 2006, the City of Shelton Commission at that time passed a resolution that authorized Mason County to include the City of Shelton in its comprehensive waste management plan. Each county is required to periodically update the plan and receive approval from any joint municipalities prior to the submission to the Department of Ecology. In 2018, the City Council, in October of 2018, the City Council authorized the Public Works Director to sign a letter of concurrence approving the updated comprehensive waste management plan. And early this month, the city staff received a notice from Mason County that new legislation requires local jurisdictions to adopt a contamination reduction and outreach plan as part of their comprehensive solid waste management plan. That is included as Appendix J in your packet. And this resolution provides the council's approval for myself to sign the letter of concurrence on the city's behalf. This valuable partnership with Mason County not only saves the city valuable staff time, but also avoids duplicate efforts with the county. And I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, let's pause 30 seconds for a public comment.
So can I ask a question? You may-
Following the public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, after public comment and after motion.
Okay.
No public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion, please?
Moving forward, resolution number 1206-0821 to the September 7th council meeting action agenda for further consideration.
Second.
All right, at this time, I'd like to ask council members to ask questions or comments.
So does this tie in with the transfer station, the garbage? So
Yeah.
would it be upkeep, upgrades, making it bigger?
Not so much making it bigger, it's just a plan in place to reduce. A lot of that has to do with the recycling program.
Okay.
So you reduce what's actually going into the landfill, or attempt as best you can to reduce the amount of waste going to the landfill.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second to forward resolution number 1206-0821 to the September 7th City Council meeting action agenda for further consideration. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now on to the action agenda. And we are going to have City Manager Jeff Knighton to share information about a franchise agreement with PUD 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. The city staff and representatives of PUD 3 have been working on this franchise agreement for quite some time, as you all know. And this agreement benefits the citizens of Shelton. It protects the city's interests, and it protects the individual utilities needs. The agreement grants a non-exclusive franchise to PUD 3 for a primary term of 10 years. And council heard this item at their August 3rd regular business meeting, and there have been no changes since that time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Once again, we'll pause for 30 seconds for public
You're
comment.
getting your exercise today, Donna.
Yeah.
No public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And now we'll have the second reading of ordinance number 1963-1220.
Ordinance number 1963-1220, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise for the transmission, distribution, and sale of electricity.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 1963-1220 as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment.
Okay.
Just want to thank the city manager for getting us through. This is the last, I recall 3 years ago when we started down this journey, we had 0. Well, I think we had 1, but we had basically no franchise agreements. And thanks for seeing this.
Yeah, this
through.
was actually one of
Check this one off. So,
one of the first things you were working on, wasn't it?
yeah.
Right off the get-go.
Yep.
So that's been, what, almost 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to thank city manager as well, tackling all of these franchise agreements that we have not had or not been adequate agreements, and your staff for tackling all these the last couple of years.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1963-1220 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Our last item this evening, presented by Community Development Director Mark Ziegler, has to do with the Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery.
Thank
Mark?
you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Once again, we're bringing you recommendations from the Shelton Arts Commission for placement in the rotating art gallery out in the Civic Center. The Shelton Arts Commission went through the process of calling for artists publicly. We had 4 artists submit and 8 total pieces of work. And all 4 artists and all 8 pieces are being recommended to bring forward to you today for placement starting August 31st, and they would be up in the Civic Center through November 30th with your approval.
Okay. Once again, we'll pause for public comment.
No public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion, please?
I move to approve the Shelton Art Commission's recommendations for placement in the Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery.
Second?
All right. Any questions or comments for Mark?
No.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I do. Are we gonna proceed with more covers, art covers for the boxes that are around town?
Not at this point. We can look at that again next year because there are a couple of the traffic boxes, but they're owned by the state, so we'd have to work through with the state of Washington to get those accomplished.
Okay, those look great. Very good.
I love looking at these pictures. You know, it'd be awesome if the Art Commission had some kind of a contest of people drawing something from Shelton historically, or something that's here now, the bridge on First Street, or just something like that, and then, you know, the council can pick the best one, and maybe the city can buy it and hang it in the lobby or something. I think that'd be kind of cool. We have a lot of historical sites that somebody can paint.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll do that or not, but.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve Shelton Arts Commission's recommendations for placement in the Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, let's move on to Jeff, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. Just a couple of things tonight. First, I wanted to mention that unfortunately, the last Timber Days event for this year is scheduled for the 20th and the 21st, coming up this weekend. I say unfortunately because I'm really looking forward to it, but it's also the last one for this year.
Although, there is still the Forest Festival festivities on September 18th, so more to look forward to.
Very true, very true. So looking forward to that coming up this weekend. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Chalk the Walk event that happened today. That was a lot of fun. Many of the team members here at the city took a walk around. Some of them even did their own artwork today. And everybody had a great time, and I was very glad that it was in the mid-70s and not as hot as it has been. So that was an enjoyable walk around town today. Those are the only 2 things I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have had 2 separate people ask me about the film program that we were looking into, recycle the film bags.
So that has quieted down quite a bit. If you remember, we didn't have a start date on that because there was some issues with the number of employees that were necessary, and they weren't able to find those employees. However, with the new ban statewide coming into effect October 1st, I believe, I'm not sure of the direction that SC Johnson was going with that program. I can certainly reach out and find out if they're still planning to pursue it and let council know. My assumption would be, though, with that ban in place, that I wouldn't imagine that it would be in their interest to continue.
All right. I had to share something. I was running around pretty ragged today, and I drove up Fifth Street one time, and I was turning left to go up the hill, up Mountain View, and I looked to the right, and there was a gal laying on the sidewalk, and I went, oh gosh, I better go look and see what this is. And then I saw, as I looked again, there's a girl drawing chalk around her body. So I decided to leave it alone. Anyway, there's no more items for discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yep.
could, I forget this often, and I apologize for that, but just go over your looking ahead for our next meeting, our next regular business meeting on September 7th. We do have surplus property discussion on your business agenda there, along with the water comprehensive plan that will be discussed as well. And then we have the action items for the things that you heard tonight, which include the surplus vehicle, updating municipal code 8.08, and that type of thing. And I will do my best not to forget this next time. I know I do it often. I'll try not to do it again.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah.
Water comp plan has been moved to like December.
Oh.
Since the publication of our packet, so.
Glad Donna's here. Okay.
Can we discuss if we want to go back to Zoom meetings or not, or is that for another time?
I'm willing to talk about it. I think we need to do it if it's what's, recommended by Inslee, right? I mean, what's the directive going to be?
So I haven't seen anything as of yet, as far as a directive. There's been encouragement coming from the governor's office, but not a directive. It's certainly up to council. We have the method set up. We used it for, almost a year and a half to conduct regular council business meetings. We can certainly go back to that if council feels comfortable.
What if we, would you consult Dave Wyndham at the Mason County Board of Health?
I can.
On what he feels?
I can. I've seen the information coming out of the health department that encourages mask wearing for all individuals, vaccinated or not.
Well, the county is having Zoom meetings as well, and so are all the other cities. Lacey, Tumwater, Olympia are all under Zoom meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a weird format in here, but the people sitting out there and maybe coming in and all that stuff, I just thought that, if we can't have a real council meeting, that maybe we should go back to Zooms until this is over. I think this is the same as kind of a Zoom. We got people out there watching us on a screen, and then they come in, and I just think that the Zoom would probably be better. That's just my opinion.
I'll do whatever, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a recommendation, not a mandate. And I have no concerns of being here with everyone. And I'm tired of sitting at home. I have a hard time paying attention.
You could come to my house and do yard work.
That would be great. So I'll do yard work while you guys are having a council meeting and come out. Hey, we voted yes. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You're pushing your little wheelbarrow over here.
I don't care one way or the other, really, but I do suggest strongly that we do not do what MTA is doing and having some people at home on Zoom and some people.
Yeah.
And that is just a farce. It's just, I'm sorry to say it, but it's tough.
Yeah.
They can't hear us. It's either their system, because they have speakers laying on the table, but not enough of them. And so it makes it really hard to make a motion because they can't hear you. So anyway, that would be my recommendation,
Yeah. So
one way or the other.
I think the consensus that I hear from council is that we go back to that format for the foreseeable future, at least until we get, we see numbers in the state going down. And if that's the direction we want to go, I definitely want to make sure that the public is fully aware of how we will be meeting and how they can access and comment on public agenda items, so we can get that information out tomorrow.
Now, will that be for all meetings or for study sessions where the public is welcome to attend? I mean, to me, that's just us meeting. Doesn't make sense to continue. But I don't know if we don't want to confuse folks by having two different methods.
Well, public can come to all of our meetings, so.
Right, but there's not a dedicated component for them to interact with council in the same way that there is here. They're welcome to
Right, they
observe
can wa-
always.
They can watch,
Right.
right. Yeah, I don't know, yeah.
So
Good idea,
I
good point.
will send an email out to each of you tomorrow morning, and then individually reply to me with the direction you'd like to go, and we'll make that happen. Okay?
Okay. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, at 6 PM. This meeting is adjourned at 6:47.